What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we know that we are less than 1 month away from next generation consoles launching with the next Xbox and the PlayStation 5, and it looks like retail stores are already starting to get in different parts for the system, accessories, controllers, all of that, and some of it is starting to leak out now online with some postings showing up on places like Facebook. We're going to go over that today, as well as some new FCC filings that show that black controller, the DualSense, returning online. Also, Analogue made a pretty big announcement that got people really excited because they're finally tackling a system that people have been asking for quite a while. And those big Nintendo Switch sales continue on, as the NPD reported for September, showing us just how well the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection did alongside of the Switch itself. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit the red subscribe button down below. And we're gonna start today with NBA 2K21. Now, we talked a little bit about, I believe, NBA 2K20 having a situation where we had in-game advertisements showing up in-game, and that didn't go over too well with the community. People weren't happy, and I remember 2K kind of talking about it, retracting it, and it was a lot of different things going on, a lot of apologies, all of this happening, and wouldn't you know it, people spotted NBA 2K21 with an unskippable ad now showing up during a load time. You can see this tweet here on Twitter. It says, "Looks like unskippable ads are back in NBA 2K21. This ad for Oculus Quest 2 shows up when you're loading into a game." $70 game, by the way. Yeah, so we talked about, of course, the situation around the price going up for games, $10, remember, from 60 to 70, and wondering if things like microtransactions or even, I guess, unskippable commercials in your game would continue on. And keep in mind, we heard all about how fast load times are. It's one thing if it's like, well, it's gonna load anyway. You'd be sitting here looking at a screen that's not doing anything, maybe a little circle at the bottom that just spins. What if we get to a point with some of these sports games where load screens are just artificially created, essentially, like they're just left in? Even if the game can load really, really fast just for a commercial to be played. This is for Oculus Quest 2, but it does make you wonder about those kind of things. Now we'll see if 2K responds to this, or they just quietly remove them, or even leave them in. Just keep in mind, $70 games, microtransactions, unskippable commercials, 2K will keep pushing this. Also, we saw that massive heatsink and that massive fan in the PlayStation 5, and we've been told that it runs pretty quiet and relatively cool inside, which is good news after the PS4 Pro, and it looks like Sony is still going to be keeping an eye on how well that fan is doing and how it's keeping up with, say, God of War Ragnarok when that comes out, or who knows what other things they have planning down the road. Let's say you get a game and you pop it in and the fan kicks up really loud. Well, according to Sony, they'll be able to update some of the readings that the fan will have in the PlayStation 5 through firmware updates, which is good news, as they themselves say there are 3 different temperature sensors inside the PlayStation 5 and the APU to kind of keep track and, of course, have the fan ramp up or down. Well, it seems that they can change those profiles through firmware updates so that they can more or less turn the fan down or up depending on where that chip is in a certain, I'm sure, certain guideline or really setup that they have. If it gets too hot, okay, we do have to turn the fan up, but it's like right on the edge. Maybe we'll give it a little bit of leeway here. My only concern is that they test it well enough so that they don't accidentally push a firmware update that blasts your fan or doesn't turn it on when it needs to be turned on. Like I said, hopefully the testing is there so that it doesn't hurt your PS5. Oh, and of course, Watchdogs Legion is out at the end of this month, and we will get some upgrades going into next generation for that with the Series X and the PlayStation 5, according to Ubisoft. And in a recent AMA on Reddit, Ubisoft told us the resolution, frame rate, all of this for next generation consoles on the PS5 and the Series X. It will be 4K, 30 frames per second with ray tracing enabled and used in the game. However, there was no answer when it comes to will there be a performance mode, quote unquote, where we can turn off ray tracing and maybe some extra special effects or anything going on, and then get 60 frames per second at maybe even a dynamic 4K resolution or just 4K in general. These open world games should become easier on these newer systems with those upgraded CPU cores, so that'll at least be good. But I do have a question for people. Would you prefer 4K 30 with ray tracing enabled, all this cool stuff, or are you someone who likes the responsiveness of 60 frames per second and you're willing to sacrifice some of those really cool visual effects? Let me know about that, because some of the games we are hearing about 2 different modes, performance and resolution. Others we just hear about resolution mode and effects like these. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're starting right away with the PlayStation 5 and the accessories that seem to be arriving in stores now, even releasing early and also leaking out already. Now, we already saw an Xbox Series X that is seemingly leaked out. And I say seemingly because I don't think they got it from Microsoft. That's all I'll say here. So we saw it unboxed, then the video goes down, and who knows with that situation. But I have now had some send me messages and pictures of DualSense controllers showing up in the back rooms at different retailers, for example. And yeah, the DualSense appears to already be in stores with street dates on them, which this is how the Series X, seemingly the controller, got out there, where it was in the back room of different retail establishments and it found its way outside, and then people unboxed it, tried it out, all of that. But I have some images here you can check out, and others posted up online as well. So at least right now, the DualSense appears to be in stores, just not ready to go on store shelves. But Sony also had mentioned that they were moving up the release date for some of their accessories to the end of October, like October 30th, which is weird to release the DualSense ahead of your system. I don't really know what you're going to do with the DualSense ahead of when the console launches. You'll have the DualSense sitting around for like 2 weeks, not able to do anything with it at your house, but I guess you can at least check it out. And to go a bit further, it appears that they have been leaking out of those retail stores or even out of the warehouses, and that's most likely where it's coming from. Fell off the back of a truck right on the way to the warehouse or at the warehouse. Anyway, we actually have seen some Facebook ads start to pop up where people are posting, like this, for example, that was posted to Reddit, for a DualSense controller for $100. Looks like they're only looking for $30 upcharge on that, which is weird because the PS5 hype is crazy. It's like through the roof. You figure you could probably get maybe even double the amount for even just the DualSense controllers. There's a lot of people who I'm sure would like to check it out ahead of time, maybe post some stuff online about it. But now my attention shifts to, if these controllers are already getting out there, and we've seen the Series X really leak out of what we believe to be a warehouse, how long until the PlayStation 5 system leaks out? Because like I said, the hype is crazy around the PlayStation 5. And I do wonder, as these start to show up in warehouses ready to be distributed to retailers or at the back of retailer stores, do you think a PS5 will leak out? Because I'm kind of thinking it will, and we'll see how Sony handles that one. We also had that black PlayStation DualSense controller show up again. Remember before we saw it, but it had like the same white buttons, and it was kind of throwing people off. It looked a bit strange like that. I don't know, it just had too much of a contrast between them. But check this out. These were images posted by the FCC, as of course they have to test all these different accessories, and there were a ton of accessories, including the PlayStation 5, I believe, development kit as well. There was a lot of different things that they were showing off in these images, but we do see the black DualSense controller here now with buttons to match. They're all blacked out buttons, and I wonder if this is something that Sony would be pursuing in the future, as the buttons seem to keep changing. However, I think what we are looking at here is still just a prototype, as kind of the identifying numbers seem to match up to like the PlayStation 5 development kit stuff. So I don't necessarily think this is something that will be on store shelves even next year. But obviously, the DualSense is going to have, I'm sure, a wide range of colors. I just wonder if Sony would black out the buttons or all of that. It really does look like something that's early on in development, where they didn't even think to put the different symbols for the PlayStation on the buttons. Now, there was one thing that seemed to show up in these FCC filings that confused even me, and I went around and just asked a couple of people about it to get some opinions on what it could be. It's this box here that plugs in. Now, there were some thoughts that this could have been something to do with the PlayStation VR 2, and I guess it still could. But as far as I can tell, this is something used in development. If you recognize it, let me know down in the comments, or you can even email me about it. But it appears to be a box that plugs in through Ethernet and also has its own power adapter, sort of. It's very odd, and like I said, I wasn't 100% sure what it would be, but I can kind of see this as something used for development. But let me know what you think it is down below. Next up, let's talk about the NPD sales and the Switch, as well as Marvel's The Avengers, because turns out it sold really well, which isn't shocking to me. That's what I figured would happen. My question was the overall performance of it going forward and the monthly active users that they are able to retain, as as we've seen, if you've played it, you know it has some issues, we'll say. I mean, they had to post a whole thing where they fixed 1,000 bugs and glitches and updates. It was all over the place. But let's take a look at the NPD charts here for September, and you can see right at the top, we do have Marvel's Avengers, #1. Then we have Super Mario 3D All-Stars. That one's interesting. You can see the little asterisk next to it. That is because they do not count digital sales. It is #2 with just physical sales. In fact, it did so well that the only other game that it's behind in terms of physical sales, according to Matt Piscatella, is Animal Crossing New Horizons in terms of its launch month. That is really good. Now, is that surprising for Super Mario 3D All-Stars? No, because we've seen Nintendo say, yeah, we're gonna stop selling this next year in March, so you might wanna get it while you can. And it does seem like they put a lot of stock out there initially, so that at least worked out for everyone who wanted to get it, but a lot of people, of course, rushed out looking to get it. So that actually makes a lot of sense. I would be curious where it would place with the digital sales, but unfortunately, the NPD still is not able to get those from Nintendo. Now, at #3, we have Madden NFL 21 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, and I have good news for Tony Hawk fans here. I would be shocked if Activision moved away from Vicarious Visions and Tony Hawk pairing there, because this is the best launch month for Tony Hawk Pro Skater ever. It did beat out Tony Hawk Pro Skater, or Tony Hawk's Underground 2, which launched in 2004. This is it right here, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Awesome news there. NBA 2K21 there at 5. Then we have Call of Duty Modern Warfare at 6. Crusader Kings 3, which is immediately the best-selling game in that series, at #7. Animal Crossing's New Horizon, that's pretty much always around in the top 10 just with physical sales, #8. Star Wars Squadrons at 9, and then Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 10. As for hardware, surprise, surprise, it was the Nintendo Switch that sold the most. In fact, there was still an increase overall, 10% increase from this time last year, but even with hardware, it was all offset by the Switch. And I mean, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are obviously in decline, because why would you buy one now if in like a month or so, you'll be able to pick up the next generation platform? In some instances, cheaper. I mean, the 1S is cheaper than the 1X and the PS5 digital even. So like for a lot of people, I think they're just biding their time waiting. I've even heard some people say they're not even really playing a lot of brand new games now because they want to experience it on new hardware in November, because a lot of the games are going to be backwards compatible that are available now, and they'll just run better. I mean, come on, Ghost of Tsushima at 60 frames per second. Yeah, that's pretty obvious there on the PlayStation 5. That's gonna be one of the games I play immediately that week. It'll be really, really cool. But the Switch continues on. It's been like 2 years that it's been topping the NPD sales charts, and we see that in Nintendo's own sales figures, where it's gonna crash through 100 million very, very quickly. Could be in the next year and a half. Seriously, it's happening very, very fast. So the real question is going to be, as we look towards next generation launching next month in November, and then of course what happens in December, will the Switch be able to hold that top position? Because right now, analysts are saying that it will most likely be the best selling piece of hardware throughout the holidays, because the PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles will most likely face stock shortages. And I'm kind of on that side as well with the Switch continuing on. There's a chance that it could miss out on November and come in like second or third, because we would have dollar sales that would be higher for the Series X and the PS5 because they cost more. But going into December with all of the crazy stuff happening, especially with number of units being sold, I would expect the Switch to be up there. Next up, let's talk about a new system that was announced by Analogue. You can see this tweet here that says, introducing Analogue Duo, an all-in-one reimagining of perhaps the most underappreciated video game systems of all time, compatible with nearly every NEC system and game format. TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, Super Graphics, TurboGrafx CD, PC Engine, CD-ROM 2. This, by the way, is awesome. Now, Analogue is gonna be interesting because it's always limited supply and it's always a pain to get, but if we go over to their website, we can actually see a little bit more about it. It's gonna have 1080p, zero lag, Bluetooth, 2.4 gigahertz, and they say because the last thing a video game system should be is predictable, completely engineered in FPGA, and there will be no emulation. It does take the CD and the Hue card. They have several images of this, and it will work with Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz as previously stated, but you can just sync up any of the different controllers they already have access to without an 8-bit DOE Bluetooth receiver. The system itself will just sync, and they also have physical ports on the side that will work with the original controller, as well as USB ports where you can plug in a controller that you have already as well. And they'll also have TurboGrafx 16, an adapter that will work with their analog pocket. That will be $30. All of this coming in 2021, and that will basically turn the analog pocket into a Turbo Express, capable of playing all of those Hue cards on the go. Now, here is the biggest issue. It's gonna be limited quantities. It's $200. It's about right. I mean, if you look up right now on eBay, that is actually a good price for the original Turbo Duo hardware right now. I'd say even with a controller and all that, that's almost a steal. But I look at this and I wonder how difficult it will get, which then of course turns into how much will it really be when we get beyond buying from Analog and having to go to resellers, and the shipping can be like $30 a time. It's all over the place. I like the Analog products because I think they're well put together. I think they work fine. It's just getting them is tough, but I do like to see them tackle this. I think this is great. I think the attachment for the Analog Pocket is also really cool. And hey, Turbo Duo next year with the ability to use CDs and the Hue cards, no lag, FPGA. This is gonna be something I'm gonna keep an eye on. I guess I'll try to get it. We'll see how that goes. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Microsoft and Rare. Specifically, the games that Rare have under their belt, of course, are games that we remember very fondly. Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, the list goes on for them. But haven't you always wondered, especially now when we look at what Microsoft's putting out there, especially with Rare doing Sea of Thieves, now Everwild, why aren't they doing Banjo or Conker or something like that? And well, Phil Spencer was asked. This was during that Kotaku interview. It was all the way down kind of at the bottom, but I thought we would go over what Phil said here. I leave it up to the studios in terms of the things that they want to go work on. I have a lot of respect for Rare and the work that they do. They do like building new things, and they've seen success with Sea of Thieves. I think they're really excited about Everwild, but also the response to Battletoads is nice, and I think partner studio Delilah did a good job with the game. And so I think it's just always a balance. My inbox is full of, like, every studio do new intellectual property, and also why have you brought back Crimson Skies and Blinks? This is supposed to be, why have you not brought back Crimson Skies and Blinks? Yeah, what's going on with Blinks there, Phil? Look, I think it's good to give studios creative freedom to say, oh, you guys can make what you want and just, you know, make sure it's not a train wreck or it doesn't work when it comes out. Just make sure it's quality and let us know, and for the most part, we'll be on board with it. But I do think at times you have to kind of step back and just look at what's happening and say, we just put Banjo in Smash. Like, the overall reception was super positive. People are really excited. Wouldn't it have been good to have a Banjo-Kazooie game ready to go at the following E3 or that E3, or even just a follow-up later on in the year? Just like, hey, we are doing Banjo-Kazooie. Why not take advantage of that hype? That's the problem. I think creative freedom is great for the studios, but I think you also have to kind of come in and say, hey guys, look, Banjo's going in Smash. Let's make a new Banjo game. And if they don't want to, Rare has already said that their IPs can be used by other studios as long as they're okay with it and the studio isn't going to absolutely destroy that IP. So I think Microsoft should be a little more proactive in some of these situations, but I at least understand what he's trying to say when it comes to taking a step back from trying to have too much control on these studios and what they are creating. But come on, we got to do Banjo. We got to have a new Blinks game. Like, let's get back to it here, Microsoft. I mean, come on, Phil. Bubsy got a new game before Blinks or Banjo-Kazooie. Think about that for a minute. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Hoarder, who says, definitely the minority here, but I'm solidly in the glad Infinite was delayed camp. 1, I want it to be well made. 2, after seeing all the auto HDR upscaling, increased frame rate goodness, I'm 100% hopping back into the Master Chief Collection and replaying 1 through 5's campaigns with the new hardware and to relive my childhood in lead up to Infinite. So first of all, you can skip 5's campaign. You won't miss much. You're good. But going back to what you're saying here, I understand why Infinite was delayed. The thing that frustrated me, and I think a lot of other fans, is that we were to that point in the first place when it's Halo. Halo is Microsoft's big IP. That's what we think of when we think of Microsoft in the Xbox, because it's been there since the beginning. So it was weird to me that Halo Infinite shows up in the state that it was when Microsoft should, along with 343, right, should have had this all figured out, and it should have been ready to go, and it should have been high quality. But even if you go back on the second channel, I did a video where I looked at the trailer, looked through it, and I was like, something seems off with this, and people got on me about it, and that's fine, but they had to delay it. So yeah, something was off about that game, and look, I would rather than put more time into Halo and get it right the first time, but we shouldn't have been in this situation. They should have been launching Halo Infinite next to the Series X and the Series S this holiday, and it should have been high quality, but but they couldn't do it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's the PlayStation 5 accessories, controllers, seemingly leaking out now to Facebook, even people trying to sell it, and that black controller. Let me ask you this, what theme, what color do you think they're gonna go with next for the DualSense? Because surely they're gonna have a ton of different controller colors and themes, I'm sure. Also, what do you think about Banjo, Kazooie, and Conker kind of being in limbo? Because Phil will let Rare decide if they want to do it or not. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.